Before we open this file, a very necessary warning. The narrative we're about to enter involves the psychological abuse of orphans and the permanent destruction of a children's self-esteem, and only in the name of academic curiosity. The Monster Experiment is a haunting look at how labels become a life sentence. Listener discretion is not only advised but mandatory. If you're sensitive to the exploitation of vulnerable children, turn back now. Welcome to High Frights. We like to think of science as a ladder that leading us towards the truth, but sometimes that ladder is built on the bricks of the people who can't fight back. Apologies. In 1939, in an orphanage in Davenport, Iowa, a man named Weldon Johnson decided to play God with the speech patterns of 22 children. He didn't use drugs and he didn't use physical force, but he used something much more dangerous: his words. He wanted to prove a theory about stuttering. And he didn't care if he silenced a dozen innocent voices forever just to do it. Now, I got my glass ready, and I'm pretty sure my lovely, lovely husband has his ready as well.
Also, kind of laugh at the fact that viewer discretion is strongly, what was it?
Strongly advised and mandatory.
Mandatory, yeah. So this is going very much flux.
I've been saying mandatory for the past couple of videos now, realistically.
Yeah, I know, I get you, but but this one definitely sounds mandatory from the concept.
Yeah. Alright, cheers.
Cheers.
And if you got it, spark it, you can join as well. Cheers. Just gonna have an ASMR of us coughing for a second. Oh shit. I don't know why mine's just not stopping burning. I'm gonna try to stop it. But anyways, today the archives revealed that the experiment that was so cruel that its own creators had to hide it from the world for 60 years. The file's now open, and let us begin. To understand the monster experiment, you also have to understand the vulnerability of the subjects. These were orphans at the Soldiers and Sailors Orphan Home. They had no parents to really advocate for them, no lawyers to protect them, and no idea that they're about to become lab rats. Wendell Johnson, a speech pathologist who struggled with a stutter himself, believed that stuttering wasn't biological and it was learned. He thought that if you told a child that they were a stutterer, the anxiety of trying not to stutter would actually cause the condition. To prove it, he sent his graduate student, Mary Tudor, into the orphanage to conduct quote-unquote therapy.
In reality, it's just incredible petty of help. A way to take it out on innocent children, it seems like.
Yeah, realistically, it sounds like this guy just went through a midlife crisis, had a hissy fit that he had a stutter still, and started blaming it on the people that, throughout his life, said that he had a stutter. I guess. That's what seems like what happened with that. The 22 children were split into two groups. Group A received positive reinforcement, but it's Group B, who was also known as the monster group, that we really want to look at. Mary Tudor took the children who spoke perfectly fine and began the systematic campaign of gaslighting. She told them that they showed signs of stuttering. She told them to never speak unless they were going to do it right. She made them hyper-aware of every syllable, every breath, and every pause. She wasn't fixing a problem, but she was planting a virus in their heads. She told a 5-year-old girl, also named Mary, but her last name was I apologize to anyone of this culture that this last name comes from because I cannot really pronounce this properly. Korlaski?
Let me see.
It seems like it would be pronounced Korlaski, but it could also be pronounced just Korlask.
Where do you see it?
Right here.
Oh. I'd go with Pulaski.
Yeah, it looks like it would be said Korlaski, but there's no like punctuation on it.
Pretty much.
So it's like,
Here's the hoping.
yeah, here's hoping. Apologies.
Apologies.
But she told this to the 5-year-old girl. You must try to stop it. Don't ever speak unless you can do it right. Now imagine being 5 years old and being told that your own voice is a failure. In the archives of the study results, the transformation of these children is very heartbreaking. They didn't just start stuttering, they stopped talking altogether. One by one, the children in the monster group became withdrawn and deeply self-conscious. They would snap their fingers or cover their mouths in frustration. Their schoolwork plummeted. Some of them became so terrified of making a mistake that they simply fell into a permanent defenseless silence. Jesus. I'm stuttering myself about an experiment about stuttering. Oh my gosh. The irony.
Just peachy.
Oh, that's peachy. The irony of this. The experiment didn't actually turn them into stutterers per se, or at least in a clinical sense, but it did turn them into people who were traumatized by the act of communication. Wendell Johnson had proven his theory by breaking the human spirit, sadly. Now, why do we call it the monster experiment? Because that's what Johnson's own colleagues called it when they saw what he was doing. Even in 1939, most modern ethnic boards, other researchers at the University of Iowa were horrified. They realized that if the public found out a prestigious university was intentionally deforming the speech of orphans, the backlash would be catastrophic. That's honestly to say the least.
Very much to say that.
So they did what institutions do best when doing experiments like this, because this isn't the first time. They buried it. They didn't publish the results to the public, because of course not. Why would they? They didn't even offer the children an apology or therapy to undo the damage. They left those kids in the orphanage with a lifelong fear of their own voices. While Johnson went on to become a titan in the field of speech pathology. And this ain't even in what I'm reading, but keep in mind, Wendell Johnson is still seen in some like textbooks we use in psychology today. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Don't fully quote me on that because I'm not 110% sure. But the name looks extremely familiar from like some psychology books that I've read at one point.
I've heard of the name in I think one of my psychology lessons in fucking high school.
Yeah, so it's like he's still being taught about to this day. Keep in mind. The archives of 2001 and 2007 show the truth eventually finds its way to the light. It took 60 years for the monster experiment to become public knowledge after the investigative report. And it was by the San Francisco Chronicle. You know what? Cheers to them.
Yeah.
It's just because of that's Jesus. In 2007, 6 of the surviving orphans, now elderly, finally received a settlement from the state of Iowa for 1.2 million US dollars. But sadly, you can't put a price on a lifetime of silence. And not for nothing, no disrespect to any of the surviving orphans. They were elderly anyways, they really didn't have much time left to really do anything with that money. So it was kind of like honestly, that feels like a final fuck you from the government. Like, Jesus. The experiment led to a total overhaul of how speech therapy is conducted and cemented the idea that you cannot just induce a disorder in a health subject just to see what happens. It remains a haunting reminder that a scientist with a theory can be just as dangerous with a killer with a blade. Honestly, now that we've looked at the man who wanted to solve his own stutter by inflicting a different kind of pain on others, we've also looked at the children of Davenport who were told that their voices aren't good enough until even they believed it. And the monster study teaches us that words are the most powerful tool we have. We can build a person up, or we can create a cage that lasts a lifetime. Wendell Johnson thought he was studying speech, but ended up proving that the power of the psychological warfare. Yeah. And honestly, there is a little bit more to that I feel like we couldn't really include in this due to like guidelines and stuff. So if you want to study about it on your own time, feel free. I think there's also other videos on YouTube as well you can find about it. Now, before we open up to the next file, this file contains descriptions of the most extreme violations of human rights ever recorded.
Okay, so I'm definitely.
Yeah,
Quite a claim.
it's a claim though for sure. The narrative involves human vivisection without anesthesia,
Oh,
biological warfare, and the systematic mass murder.
may I have a slight description of what vivisection is again?
Well, we're about to find out because this is the details of the Unit 731,
Oh, okay.
and
So
they're
it's gonna be
profoundly graphic and distressing. Listener discretion is absolutely mandatory for this one. If you cannot handle the darkest depths of human depravity, turn back now,
in
please.
the supposed name of science.
Yeah. I just realized I typed something wrong. There we go, I had to fix it real quick. Anyways, welcome. Well, we've already did the welcome and all that. We're looking at the labs in the U.S. that played with the mind, but Jesus, we've already looked at the labs in the U.S. that played with the mind, but now we're crossing the Pacific to Harbin, China. This was during the 1930s and 40s, and here the Imperial Chinese, no, Japanese, apologies, Japanese army has built a massive complex called Ping Fang. To the locals, it was a lumber mill. And to the soldiers, it was Unit 731. But to the thousands of people who entered those gates and never came out, it was a factory of death. Also, I just realized I didn't switch it. Oopsies. I forgot to switch something. Oopsies. Anyways, little bloopers. We're leaving that in. Now, in this unit, they didn't call victims patients or prisoners. They called them Maruta, which means logs. Or Maruta? I believe that's pronounced. I apologize if it's not. Because in this place, the human beings were just wood to be burned for the sake of science. Now, I already have the second bowl of the night packed and ready. You ready, Fiona?
One moment, I'm still trying to process. Exactly.
That intro for that one could have went a lot better. My apologies for that.
Ever so slightly.
Ever so slightly, but at least it's done. Remember to hydrate.
Alright,
Alright, I'm ready. And again, if you got it, spark it. Cheers. The bowl got stuck. Ooh. From this point on, yes, there are going to be other bowls of the night, but please forgive me if I mispronounce things or if I say things that don't quite make sense or aren't quite correct.
Okay.
Because keep in mind, this is a gardening based true crime channel. Just throwing that out there. Just a fair warning. It's going to get a little wonky, yeah. Now, tonight, the file now reveals the blueprints of a living hell and the deal with the devil that let the monsters walk free. This is an actual quote from the thing. Now let's begin with this one. To understand Unit 731 or 731, you have to understand the man behind it, Dr. Shiro Ishii. He wasn't just a doctor. He was a fanatic. He believed that the next war would be won with germs and not weapons. He would build a state-of-the-art facility complete with a cinema, a bar, and Shinto shrines, I believe if I'm pronouncing that properly, all surrounding the central prison block where the quote-unquote logs were kept. Ishii wanted to know how the human body reacted to the absolute limits of endurance. He wasn't interested in healing. He was interested in the effects of destruction.
Is it efficacy?
Yeah, efficacy. No. English is not my first language. Apologies.
Puerto Rican to English is hard.
Under his command, Unit 731 became a place of the Hippocratic Oath went to die, or where the Hippocratic Oath went to die. Apologies. Replaced by an old calculating hunger for data that was written in blood. In the archives of the Ping Fang facility, the most horrifying entries involve vivisections. Researchers believe that using anesthesia would, quote unquote, taint the results, claiming that it altered the body's natural responses. So basically, it means that these patients were fully alive.
Or fully aware.
Yeah,
Feel
and
every single thing that was happening.
And this is gonna kind of explain what a vivisection is, but of course we can't get into a lot of detail of what it is without going against guidelines. Don't take it up with me. Take it up with YouTube.
Trust me, we don't like it either.
Yeah. They would open up the living, conscious victims, men, women, even infants, to observe the functions of organs in real time. They would remove stomachs and stitch the esophagus directly to the intestines. They would remove brains, livers, lungs while the logs were still breathing. This wasn't surgery. This was a ritual of dehumanization. They wanted fresh samples, as they claim. And they were willing to listen to the screams to get them. Unit 731 wasn't just a lab, it was a mutinous factory. They bred millions of plague-infected fleas and produced tons of anthrax, cholera, and thypoid. Not thyroid, thypoid. Or thyphoid? It's pH. PHO, so Freud. Apologies. They didn't just test these in a lab, they tested them on the surrounding Chinese population. They would drop plague bombs, which was porcelain shells that was filled with the infected fleas they had. And they would put them over cities like Ningbo and I apologize if I'm pronouncing these wrong. Ningbo and Shangde or Shangdi. Is Shangdi or Shangde? They would give children chocolate laced with anthrax and hand out the typhoid contaminated water to hungry villagers. The archives, I'm not going to say files because of our current state of the world. The archives suggest that hundreds of thousands of Chinese civilians died for these field tests. It was the birth of a modern biological warfare fueled by the corpse of the innocent. The cruelty wasn't limited to just germs. The researchers at Unit 731 were obsessed with physics and the elements. They would put victims in high pressure chambers until their eyes were literally forced out of their sockets. They would tie people to stakes at various distances to test the effectiveness of a flamethrower and fragment bombs. Or fragmentation bombs. One of the most famous and chilling experiments involved frostbite. They would take apologies, they would take prisoners outside in the dead of the Manchurian weather, the winter, and douse their limbs in water. Then they would just wait for them to freeze solid. And even then, they would. So this is like below, like sub-zero. Like this is definitely below freezing. If it's cold enough to freeze their limbs.
Yeah, ain't that true?
It didn't say exactly how cold. But then they would strike their frozen limbs with short sticks just to hear the sound of ice and bones breaking. They would even douse the frozen limbs in boiling water to see how the flesh peeled away. All just for science, apparently.
Very definite science.
Yep, 100% science. Don't know what you're talking about. Jesus. The archives of the post-war era revealed a betrayal that still stings today. When the war ended, Shiro Ishii ordered a facility blow up that all remaining logs were murdered to hide the evidence. But obviously the truth didn't stay buried. The US military captured Ishii and his top scientists. But, of course, instead of putting them on trial for their war crimes or maybe even having jail time themselves, because why hold anyone accountable, of course, they usually, like they would do at the Nuremberg, US made a secret deal with Ishii. They granted Ishii and his staff complete immunity in exchange for the data they gathered from the human experiments. America, fuck yeah, I guess. Fucking. The US wanted the biological warfare research to stay out of Soviet hands. The monsters of Unit 731 didn't go to the gallows like they should. They went back to successful careers in medicine, academia, and business all in Japan. They even went on to lead major pharmaceutical companies. The data brought us within the silence of the victims.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't the research like entirely unusable?
Yeah, oh, so this is completely off script. Yeah, the data that the US actually ended up gathering from them was completely unusable. They couldn't use anything from it. It was all useless data. It was all shit we already knew pretty much.
Like, yeah, I think people
Or like common sense, like, oh, freeze hand dies. Like
Or stuff like, oh, if you feed kids chocolate laced with anthrax, it's gonna wind up killing them very slowly, very horrifically.
Just let me give this random infant some
cholera.
Yeah, some like cholera real quick.
See how fast they just wind up broken. Like, what are we doing?
What is happening right now?
What are we actually doing?
So now we've looked at a place where the sun is never shown, even in the middle of the day. We've looked at the Maruta, apologies for the mispronunciation, who were erased from history, and of course the men who profited from their pain. Unit 731 is a permanent stain on the history of science. It's a reminder that when we stop seeing the other peoples as human, we become the very monsters we claim to protect ourselves against. But anyways, time for the last one of the night. Do you have your bowl ready for a third one? Jeez, I'm still coughing from the second one. Jeez. I think I'm going down after this. I think after this video, I need to take a nap.
I need to take a nap.
I need to take a nap. I'm gonna lay right here.
I'm right here.
I also have Bean Boozle beans here, but I don't think this is the type of video to be doing that too.
No, I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry.
We're
possibly eating dirty socks.
I wanna cry for sympathy for the victims and respect for the victims rather than cry because I ate burnt leather.
Thank you.
That is a flavor of your burnt leather.
Fucking toothpaste.
All right, cheers.
Indeed. Cheers.
Okay, that one wasn't that bad. Surprisingly. I do got cotton mouth though. Jesus, remember to hydrate, everyone. Oh lordy. Okay. Before we move into the final file of the night, this is again a very necessary warning, like a very very large trigger warning.
Oh, this one's that bad.
It's pretty bad. The narrative we're about to enter involves systematic medical racism, the deliberate withholding of life-saving treatment, and the slow, painful death of hundreds of African American men at the hands of the U.S. government. This content deals with institutionalized cruelty and the long-term trauma of the medical mistrust. Listener discretion is very mandatory on this one. We usually look at mad scientists in secret labs on a normal basis. But this time, the monster is the U.S. The U.S. Public Health Service. No service.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to start in Alabama, 1932, in Macon County. A place where poverty was high and the quote-unquote bad blood was the local catch-all for everything, from anemia to syphilis. For 40 years, the government didn't just study a disease, they watched it rot people from the inside out while they held the cure in their pockets. Now, the file reveals the longest running non treatment study in history and the legacy of fear it left behind. This is going to be called the Tuskegee study. Now, to understand the Tuskegee study, you have to understand the predatory nature from the very start. In 1932, the Public Health Service, or its system, whatever which way you want to call it, working with the Tuskegee Institute, recruited 600 black men, 399 with syphilis, and 201 who were healthy and didn't have anything. These were sharecroppers. That's what they were called. Men who had never seen a doctor in their lives. The researchers didn't tell them they had syphilis. They were told that they were getting treated for, quote unquote, bad blood. They lured them in with promises that felt like a godsend, like free medical exams, free meals, and most importantly, burial insurance. In a time when a decent funeral was a luxury, the government used the dignity of death to exploit the living. The archives take a truly dark turn in the 1940s, though. Initially, syphilis was hard to treat with toxic metals like arsenic. But by 1943, penicillin became the golden standard. It was like a miracle drug. It could have ended the suffering of these men in a matter of days. But the researchers didn't want to end the study. They wanted to see the natural progression of the disease until death. They didn't just withhold the drug, they actively prevented the men from not getting it elsewhere. They gave local doctors lists of subjects and told them not to treat them. They even worked with the draft board until World War II to ensure that these men weren't included in the military, because if they had been, they would have received a physical and a life-saving cure.
They systemically fucking took every chance they could get of actually getting a cure away. To a point of telling doctors to lie. Oh my god.
Yep. Now, in the archives, one name stands out as a complex figure. Anise Rivers. She was an African American nurse who acted as a primary bridge between the white doctors and the African American community. For the men in the study, Miss Rivers was the only person they trusted. She drove them to their appointments and made sure they stayed in the program. To the researchers, she was an essential tool for compliance. It's a haunting look at how the systems of oppression use members of the oppression community to maintain their grip. She wasn't just the architect of the study, but she was the face of it, proving that the most effective betrayals often become with a familiar smile. The secret of Macon County wasn't kept in a vault, obviously. It was published in medical journals for decades. No one really cared until a man named Peter Buxton, a PhD venereal disease investigator, started asking questions in 1966. He wrote memos pointing out the obvious, that this was a cold-blooded murder. The PHS ignored him, of course, because why would they actually agree with him and try pointing it out? And it took him 6 years to finally leak the story to Gene Heller of the Associated Press. And on July 25th of 1972, the headline hit the front page of New York Times. The public finally saw what the government was doing. They allowed 128 men to die of syphilis, or its complications, infected over 40 wives, and passed the disease down to 19 children at birth. All just to watch and see what happened. Now, the archives of the 1990s and the 2020s show that the damage of Tuskegee didn't end with the lawsuit. Because, of course not.
What's it what?
Of course it wouldn't. In 1997, President Bill Clinton finally issued a formal apology saying that the United States government did something that was wrong, deeply profound and morally wrong. But obviously you can't just apologize away generational trauma. The the Tuskegee effect is very much real. And it's why to this day there's a deeply seated, justifiable hesitancy in many Black communities when it comes down to government run healthcare and clinical trials. The study didn't just kill men, it poisoned the relationship between people and the medical establishment for centuries. Now that we've looked into the government that viewed human lives as clinical material, we've looked at the men who were lied to for 40 years while they went blind, went insane, and died in the name of a study. And Tuskegee is the ultimate reminder that ethics aren't just red tape. They're a thin line between a doctor and a predator. The archives tell us that science without morality isn't progress. It's just a different type of weapon. Thanks for sticking with us tonight, and this one was a heavy hitter in more ways than one. I need to lay down. Take care of each other out there. Advocate for your health. Ask questions and never take trust me as a face value. Stay safe and always keep your eyes on the bright side. This is High Frights. Good night. Good night.